What's going on? So I'm working on something kind of cool. I'm putting together these new ostomy patient bags that I've been working on with Jesse, a friend of mine who also has an ostomy. We were given a contribution by one of Jesse's clients. She cuts hair, so it's by one of her clients to do something in memory of a good friend of ours who died of suicide. She was an ostomy nurse just before Christmas this last year. And so we had the idea of putting together these pretty cool new patient bags that are going to have a copy of my book, a link to the podcast, support group information for whatever state they're from, a number of new patient starter booklets, Q&As, my top social media people that I like to follow, from motivational to Crohns and ostomy, to kind of get them into our network. And I've got a hospital in Kansas City that I'm putting together 50 of these for all their new patients for the next couple months. So I'm really excited about that. It'll be pretty dope. So for all the listeners, we went through round one. This is round two. So we're going to act like we didn't have the first one. And we'll just start all over from the beginning, but we're going to do round two because I didn't hit record when I did the last podcast with Jeff. So forgive me, Jeff, and thank you very much for being willing to come and do this again. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me again.
Dude, to start off, I want to know how 1 year after your ostomy surgery, you've got a slogan, be savage, not average. Because 1 year after my ostomy surgery, I thought I was pretty awesome, but it was right around the 1 year after that I hit that wall because I realized my surgery, it wasn't going to be temporary anymore. It was going to be permanent. And it like emotionally shattered me. So, I mean, I worked out and things like that, but I was just so negative. So something has happened in regards to your mindset to be able to overcome that and still be motivation for other people and doing what you're doing as a trainer.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is I feel kind of lucky, to be honest, because I've looked around and I've seen people that are in kind of a more rough situation than I think that I'm in, and for some reason my body coped pretty well to the ostomy.
Yeah,
I mean, it coped better to the ostomy than any other treatment I've ever had. So I feel like that was the opportunity I needed to really take off. And I just, approach things one day at a time, really, and make the savage, not average choice.
So it's a choice. Yeah, man, that's exactly right. Every day, because half the time I want to wake up and just give up, right? I heard someone said that the worst invention in the whole world is the snooze button, because it makes you start your day by giving into the body. You wake up and you want to go back to sleep and you're slamming the snooze, and your first action in that day is giving into the body and going back to sleep.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the snooze button.
All right, so take us back. You're 29 now, but take us back to when you were diagnosed. When were you diagnosed? And tell us a little bit about what you have and what you're dealing with.
So I've had issues in my gut for basically my entire life. As I look back, my process of being diagnosed with Crohn's disease was like kind of a rough one. But I think back to even maybe 7th, 8th grade, that sort of thing, having like chronic diarrhea for spurts of my life, but not really thinking that was an issue. But so
dude, by chronic diarrhea, because unless you have chronic diarrhea, you kind of think you've experienced it, but you really haven't experienced it, because there's nothing worse than like prolonged a year long, 2 years long bout with having chronic diarrhea. There's just it's brutal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, in college, I had issues like that for like, dude, more often than not, it was chronic diarrhea. That's how I remember it. But
Dude.
yeah, it's rough. I didn't get diagnosed with Crohn's until like fully diagnosed until 2016 ish.
Okay.
But it took me having to go up to the Cleveland Clinic to um, get all of the testing done, and I'm kind of a hard case. Like I request to, like, I need to see it to believe it type of thing. And before I got diagnosed, I felt like there were some things that were sort of indeterminate about my situation, but they
What
were
kind
able
of
to
tests and stuff
fully
did they
diagnose this.
run at the Cleveland Clinic? What kind of tests and stuff did they run at the Cleveland Clinic?
Well, I had scopes before, like, and they always said like, well, it looks like Crohn's, could be Crohn's, and I don't like that answer.
Right.
As a guy with an engineering background, it just like rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I understand like it's hard to commit to things or whatever. And I used to train really hard, and I would use a lot of ibuprofen, and ibuprofen can cause Crohn's issues. So I wasn't completely sure that it was all Crohn's, but it ended up being a mix of the two. Um, but so in 2013 or 14 is when like my health kind of fell off a cliff, and I went through a few years of um, I had Crohn's for sure, but it was more of like me not being able to accept it until I went to the Cleveland Clinic, and they're pretty well renowned to being like one of the best departments for issues in the gut. So it took them telling me to accept it.
And when they told you that, what did you think? Did you know what it was? What was your initial reaction?
Like I said, I mean, it was like I knew I had something. There's something wrong with me.
Were you relieved when you were diagnosed? Was there some sort of, did you feel better knowing that you had what you had, or how did you feel after that, after the diagnosis?
I think I was able to accept it and start, changing my mindset to improve my situation as opposed to running away from it.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that early on for sure. Like I said, I was like, I had no idea what Crohn's disease was. And right after college, when I graduated in 2013, it was like, I just got super, super sick, like bloody stools, going to the bathroom 15 to 20 times a day. I lost like 30 pounds in 30 days, but I was still just like, if I wait long enough, this might just go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously it never went away. So it took me a long time to accept it. I didn't really even realize I was doing it until later on, where I was like, man, I was really being stubborn about some stuff.
And how many times did prior to that, it's almost our habit to wait things out. When something starts bothering us, because we're so used to seeing a problem, you kind of just go, yeah, I'm just going to wait this one out. It might get better. And you know what? 3 months later, it might get better. And it does. And then it'll go away. And so you just have this habit when you have chronic problems, they just kind of come and go, especially with autoimmune disorders. You kind of just wait them out, thinking my immune system's struggling with this, and I'm just going to wait it out. And sometimes, man, that could be detrimental because you're waiting out the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like there's a lot of things about it that don't make sense. So you kind of just wait for answers, I guess, but they never really show up. So it's like, and I think even like, taking, taking the initiative sometimes and putting the extra stress on yourself to be like, to get after it can even exhaust you and make things worse.
Yeah.
It's crazy how the cycle can just keep going.
It's nonstop. I feel like, I feel like it's an ongoing joke with my bride and I about how, if it's not one thing, it's another. And you just eventually have to get over it and just kind of get on down the road and accept that my life is going to be full of these like physical roadblocks, and you just got to get over it, because you'll spend your whole day sitting at home.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's what I think the acceptance was key for me. Like I put a lot of stress on myself trying to fight back, and it like it wasn't until the last couple of years where I sort of gave into it a little bit, and then and I credit that as what gave me the opportunity to be healthy. I mean, like this last year with an ostomy is the longest consecutive period where I've been healthy since like I can remember, and it's been like 12 months.
Dude, that's awesome.
It's been a full year. So like, man, it took forever, almost a decade. Like,
Yeah, that's amazing. What So from your diagnosis in 2016 to your ileostomy in 2019, what progressed there? Because obviously you started and continued getting worse.
so maybe around 2015, 16 ish. I was going through a flare and was pretty stressed out, and I ended up catching C. diff actually. And so I had a really rough week or so in the hospital with C. diff and Crohn's. And I don't think I ever really like recovered from that,
Yeah.
like fully. And then after that, I just kept going through cycles of flares and, like high dose prednisone type of thing, trying to control it. And all the like at the same time trying to manage my career. And I was really like, so like I said before, I have an engineering background. So I worked as an engineer, and it was a very stressful job. And I would pretty much put myself on the line for that. And I think all this stress and pressure I'd put on myself, like also trying to deal with just this crappy health.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible cycle for me. I was never really able to like catch my breath. So it just progressed, like kept getting worse and worse. And like I said, I went to the Cleveland Clinic and tried all kinds of treatments and never had like a long or strong enough response to any of them. It was basically until my colon was like 90% ulcerated, and I basically had no other choice but to try the ileostomy. And thus far, it's working out. But
were you fine with, and at least open because you were sick enough for that surgery? Were you open enough to it, or did you give any resistance, or where was your head at with that?
yeah, I think I was open to it. I was pretty broken. Yeah, it's like, it's funny how there's certain things in your life that you remember very clearly. And the morning of that, my surgery was what I was just like, man, this is enough. Like it's time to time to do this and really try to get after it, because I like my surgery was at like 7 a.m, and we had driven from Columbus, Ohio to Cleveland, and left at like, I don't know, like 3 a.m. But it's just funny. I I went and saw the Avengers Endgame with all my friends
Yeah.
Thursday night that it like the movie came out, and I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I just like wouldn't allow myself to not see it today, because I was just like, I'm so tired of this being sick crap. I'm just going to go. And so I went and saw the Avengers, slept for like 2 hours. And then my dad and my mom, my girlfriend, took me to Cleveland Clinic. And I don't even remember, like I've seen the movie since then, but I couldn't even remember the movie. I was so messed up. But I hit every single bathroom from the lobby up until the waiting room. And something about being pushed around by my dad in a wheelchair was like very powerful to me. I was just like, man, I'm 28 years old. My dad is getting pretty old and he's pushing me around in a wheelchair. Yeah. I felt like shit. Like it was bad. And I probably, like I said, I probably hit 4 bathrooms on the way up to the waiting room. And by the time I was like, actually, it was ready to go, I was like, just drug me up and let's go.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know, you kind of always have to be, so many people wait until they're at that worst place before they consider an ostomy. It just kind of gets put on the back burner. You kind of think, you know, I'll get over it. It's, you know, not me, blah, blah, blah. And and that's kind of how I was. You just get to a very serious place where there's really no other option. You're just like, with me, I didn't fear getting my ostomy at all. Just like you, it was an accumulation of bad health that I was just open enough to doing it just because I was willing to try anything. And it was probably good that I thought it was going to be temporary too, because with it being temporary, I was thinking it was going to be temporary. I thought it was going to be turn around here pretty soon so I could go back to some sort of normal. But yeah, man, did you hear about that guy over, it might be in the UK, who had serious surgery and had an ostomy before and said, if this surgery goes bad and it ends up being an ostomy, he wants to be euthanized. And so he literally, when they went through surgery, put him in an induced coma while a judge decided on his request and approved it and sided with the patient. And now he's no longer with us just because of his fear of having an ostomy. And this was like 3 weeks ago, dude.
So I did hear that, but I didn't know that whole story. But man, that's a shame. I mean, I can't really speak to that because I don't think I've ever been in a position where like I wanted things to end. I've always been like, I'm gonna fight until my last breath type of thing.
Yeah.
Having an ostomy, like, it definitely presents its own set of challenges, and it sucks sometimes. But yeah, it's a really bummer to me that he felt that strongly about that.
Right.
I mean, it's rough, man.
There's a lot of things about having an ostomy that is hard to accept. And I was single. This guy was single. He was concerned about dating. He was concerned about his sex life and his relationships. And it was like, I mean, that's what went through my head, all those things. But I'm a lot like you. And it has to be a gift because I just haven't been given, though I have thought of and considered those things just in thought. I was given a gift of just not quitting. And the harder things get, the stronger I feel like I want to bust out of it, kind of a thing. And it broke my heart when I heard that guy's story. And there's so many people that just struggle emotionally with accepting the idea of having to have one of these things. Did you struggle emotionally at all? Or do you still? And in what ways?
So I did. I have always been an athlete, and you know, like I started MSTB Fitness, my personal training company, because I love to coach. I love, you know, sports and being an athlete and moving and performing well.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my issues with the Crohn's thing is like, I felt like it really took that away from me. And that's probably the most, like, as far as feeling like a victim goes, I'm just like, man, I wish that I could do this, or I wish that I could do that. Or I would always tend to compare myself to my previous self.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of negative emotions like that. And I mean, still, like, I track my performance and my progress and stuff. And I've learned that as long as I'm like making teeny steps forward, then it's good. And it took me a long time to learn that. Like, I wanted to make leaps and bounds of progress. And I think I learned that, like, how tough that this situation has made me emotionally was like a huge improvement of who I used to be, that I just overlooked that because I was so obsessed with other things. With, like, I want to train jujitsu. I want to be able to lift heavy. I want all this stuff. And I think being able to control my emotions actually helped me, get that other stuff in check, and, sort of develop my own programming and stuff where I can do things the right way, in the healthy way.
Yeah.
But man, excuse me. Yeah, so I used to compete Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like, pretty often. And I was deeply saddened when, like, I'm not going to say that I would never do it with an ostomy. I'm not sure. Like, I'm working on it, and I would do it because sometimes I just get kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it's hard, man. Like, in a grappling sport like that, like, I do feel very vulnerable. But I don't know. I just being able to, like, show up and train and stuff. I mean, like, I remember this one time I told my dad, I was like, I just want to train jujitsu like a normal person one more time in my life, and I'll be happy. And I actually said that, and that was probably one of my, like, most broken moments where I felt like I would never get better. I mean, I went through, like, months and months and months and months of being like 120 pounds and just being like, sleeping for 16 hours, 20 hours a day type of thing, that I felt like that. And then being able to work back with an ostomy, despite, like, the things I went through, and, say that I actually trained jiu-jitsu this morning. And it makes me feel, like, very proud of what I've done, or what, I mean, it's incredible, really.
Do you use a belt or anything like that when you train?
Oh yeah, I use Stealth Belt.
The stealth belt?
I have a Stealth Belt Pro and a Stealth Belt Hybrid.
Yeah.
And the Pro I wear, like, all the time. Like, I wear it to sleep and just do my standard stuff. And then the Stealth Belt Hybrid I wear because it's, like, thicker and it gives me a little bit more protection when I lift and run. Like, I wore the Hybrid during the Spartan Race. I wore it this morning when I trained jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So how do you do a Spartan race with an ostomy? I mean, in all seriousness.
Oh man, there's some fears associated with it, but, like, so I took, so I didn't do it alone, and that's the key. That I think is the key to all this. So, so my little brother, who's a type 1 diabetic and struggles with that, and my girlfriend, we all ran it together and we all trained together. And I just knew that if something were to happen to me, that they were there for me.
Yeah.
And man, now that I think about it, I don't know that I would run one by myself. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I would like to, like, nothing against them or my teammates or anything like that, but, like, that sounds like a pretty decent challenge, like, running one by myself, because I don't have my crew there with me.
Right.
But I mean, when you run it, for me, when I run it with them and train with them, I don't have this competitive edge where I feel like I'm going to push myself into the realm of, like, high risk injury type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I did it took a year of training. I mean,
You're cautiously crazy.
yes. Yeah.
So would you say your mind and your spirit kind of helps you kind of take on these challenges to where you bring your body meets you there? So you have a mental strength that sounds like that's always wanting you to push and go further and strive, and your body just kind of follows that momentum. Is that pretty accurate?
Well, I would say yes and no. So my body is always not up to par with what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn to accept that. You know, like I want to train more. I want to lift heavier. I want to run more races. And I used to be like that, but now I'm getting a little bit older and I mean, gosh, all the years of stress and being sick, like that had to have taken a toll on my insides, you know? So
Yeah.
I've just learned to be much more gentle with myself, and you have to recover. Like when you're a 20-year-old kid and you can recover from anything, you can go out and get hammered and then wake up. I mean, I used to do it. Like I remember some of the stuff I would do in college. Like me and one of my buddies used to like drink and then wake up at 5:30 and go lift weights like hungover.
Yeah.
And I would never, ever, ever, ever in a million years do that today. Like it would derail my entire operation here. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so so I post about this to my Instagram all the time about like things are super boring. Like everybody wants a flashy answer and stuff, but like cleaning up the riffraff of your life and not doing things that are going to, you know, remove you from the tracks of your goals or whatever. Like that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. Simplicity is really important. It creates consistency and it allows your body to be able to heal. I've found that I am more aware of my body's health and growth when I'm not trying to go and do 100 things. Just doing the things that I know I ought to, the basic thing, and they aren't the sexy things. You know, getting good sleep and drinking
Right.
lots of water, and not having some special drink I'm buying, and not having some. I mean, those things aren't sexy, but they work and they're consistent, and that's where it matters.
Yeah, the supplements like the secret drinks and the, you know, all this stuff, you got to realize that that stuff probably accounts for 5% of your performance.
Yeah.
Meaning like if you don't sleep well and your social life sucks and you don't eat well, taking supplement is literally not gonna it's
Yeah.
not gonna change it. Like I've been down that road too. Like this is coming from, I'll be completely honest, like full on experience. Like you you know, I tried to make up for the bullshit in my life by looking for, you know, cheap answers, and it really, really doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Never. You got to put in the work,
Oh yeah.
because you got
That's
to
the
be
fun part,
savage
man.
and not average, Jeff.
Right. Savage, not average on a daily basis, man.
That's right. So
Minute
tell
by
me,
minute.
what's the least you've ever weighed, and what's the most you've ever weighed on a scale?
The most I ever weighed was before that C. diff thing, and I was 183,
Okay.
and I was like in pretty good shape. And yeah, I was also yeah. So I was 183, and then when I got super sick, I lost 30 pounds in 30 days, and I was down to 153, 155 or whatever. And I was hanging on there for a little while, and then I would go through cycles, and I got down into like the high 120s or something. And then my last flare into the ileostomy, I was down to like 117 pounds. So I'm 5'10". I would say my equilibrium weight's probably 165, 160.
Yeah.
So
Dude.
people, so I tell people like, cause right now I'm floating around 155, 160, pretty lean. Um, I've told people like I've gained 40 pounds and they're just like, they look at me like, dude, there's no way that you gained 40 pounds. I'm like, no.
Right.
Yeah, I did.
I mean,
It's
that's 30%
wild.
of your body weight from 183 to 117. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So the most I ever weighed was when I met my bride when we were dating, and that was 287, and that was in 2000. She's gonna kill me. Whenever it was, 2011, and then the least that I weighed was when I was really sick and in the hospital during my ostomy surgery as well, and I was 156. But before then, I had been 275, so I went from 275 of ripping steel and sex appeal, as my dad says, all the way down to 156 before I got out of the hospital, and then I just started shooting up from there. But dude, we can lose some weight, can't we?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude. And you know what? For anyone who's listening that doesn't have Crohn's or for whatever reason you're listening to this, don't ever tell a Crohn's person or an ulcerative colitis person that you wish you could lose weight like them. That pisses me off, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't. Like, trust me, that's not how you want to lose 30 pounds.
And there's no nice way of responding to that. There's no nice way to respond to it. You're like, no, you don't. And then you either become this whiny person about your illness. Yeah. But it's just like, whatever, man.
Yeah, you can't really, stuff like that used to bother me a lot. But as I've getting more and more into this, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, these people just don't quite get it. And I also think that sometimes people just don't know what to say to.
Yeah.
They don't know what to say to you. I mean, it's right. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I forgive everybody. I forgive you all who've told that to me.
I've learned, that there's so many things that people deal with, and we all know this is true, that once I hear like, oh, your problems, I want all my problems back. Right. And so whether I can see them or not, I know that the problems that I have are the ones that I want eventually just want to keep back every time. That's how it works. So what have you learned the most through looking back at yourself, where you've grown and matured the most through going through what you've gone through?
I would say like I've learned like a sense of self-confidence and pride, because I do feel like I've achieved a lot despite my condition. And I used to be like an anxious kind of, like I tend to beat myself up a lot. And I mean, it's so I just have like, I appreciate life, and I'm grateful for the people around me and my support system, like beyond belief now. And I credit the Crohn's experience for that, for me, for sure. Yeah. It's like, so I'll use the Spartan Race for an example. I mean, I don't think anybody looking at me would have been like, oh, wow, that guy's super sick, or that guy has a severe chronic disease. People don't even know that I have an ostomy. Like, I'm right there in the pack performing, with everybody else, even outperforming some people.
Yeah.
And that, like, I don't want to sound being cocky or anything like that, but it does give me like a sense of pride and accomplishment of like, man, sometimes when you're going through that stuff, you're just getting your ass kicked all the time. And finally, when it's your turn to kick some ass, it's like, it just feels good. I mean,
right.
But being able to like accept myself and, be confident that I can do, I can do anything I want, even despite having been through what I've been through.
How important was it having your girlfriend and your family close by through all of this to kind of keep your mind right during those weak times, but just the love you receive on the front end of this surgery and kind of recovery back into your normal life? How much more difficult do you think it would have been without them, and what impact did they play?
Um, they played the biggest impact. I mean, I would never be able to do this by myself. I would even say that some of the stuff I do is for them, like the confidence I was just talking about. It wasn't until like seeing the confidence that they had in me until I finally realized that about myself. Like
Yeah,
being able to, I mean, they were with me. They were with me through everything. Like my dad, we have this this running joke where like I've been inside of every gas station bathroom from Columbus to Cleveland on the way back, and he would drive me every time. He never would make me go to something alone that I didn't want to go to. And I'm like a grown man, and I'm not
yeah,
ashamed to admit that I didn't want to do this stuff by myself.
right.
And my girlfriend, she would take me. She sat there with me through a bunch of infusions. Um, she's taking me to appointments. My mom and my dad and her were there for my surgery, and I mean that's some of the most powerful moments or memories that I have of the whole thing is just seeing their faces, right before I got pushed out of the room. Like,
Yeah,
um, I don't know. I just like I have this vision in my mind of my girlfriend. Like she was crying when it was time for me to go, and I was just like, I gave my dad a fist bump on the way out of the door. It's weird how you remember all this stuff because I
right.
was like, literally 5 minutes later, I was like knocked out, unconscious.
Yeah,
But
and they're vivid
it,
images.
yeah, and I even like upon waking up, like I was just instantaneously emotional because the vision of her came into my head of she was crying, and I was just like it was a mix between that and then like the pain in my gut. I was just like, oh man, and I don't know, like that's I just saw the way that they, the confidence they had in me, and I mean, I feed off of that. I could never do this. I can never do this stuff by myself.
Yeah,
There's no point really.
that's exactly
And
right. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, like I want to share my life with the people around me that I love, and without them, there is no point in doing it anyways. So it's like, yeah.
all right. So anybody who's listening, whether you are sick or not, have any kind of chronic illness or not, this goes for like all of us, no matter where we're at. But you need to go to mstbfitness.com and check out the section of how to exercise with chronic illness, just because there's a handful of things in there, Jeff, that I love. And I just want to point them out and talk about it just briefly as we kind of conclude here. But you, where the way you say it is disease activities govern your intensity, meaning, on a daily basis, our illness or whatever we're dealing with is going to gauge how much we're able to put forth, what our intensity should be, and what that day should kind of look like for us. And that's incredibly important. I was really glad that was like the first thing you put on there, because it took me years to realize that, because I just kept
Yeah.
pushing myself too far, and then I'd spend 2 weeks not working out, recovering, because I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite rules, especially for my own personal training. I mean, if you think of it like this, you only have so much energy to spend like per day or
Right.
whatever. So
Yeah.
like if you're in a flare and you don't have much energy to begin with, then you definitely don't want to overreach and spend it on, working out too hard. I mean, you're like, of course, this is a super complicated equation about how the body recovers and all that stuff, but like pretty simple terms, exercise does damage. So you don't want to do more damage than you're capable of recovering. And it's super easy, especially in the moment. Like, I always say you gotta have systems in place to check your ego pretty much, because, if you plan to do like 5 sets of squats and you're feeling pretty good and you do another one and then you've done too much, then, like on a day that you felt like you didn't have it in you, but then when you started and then you push yourself too far, like those are the type of things that you should avoid, I think.
Yeah, and one of those systems that you use is the progress journal, and the encouragement of just taking it a step further each time that you go to work out. And those are really good rules of thumb. People who have stomach problems and things, whether you do it or not, you probably should. But I go back to it all the time. I use my phone now to do it, but to keep track of a food journal and how you're eating and what you're eating and how your output is and those things, in order to track a problem and try and figure out that. So in the same way, you got to keep score, but a progress journal in working out is the same way, especially when you're trying to create a routine, right? Because it's so important to be striving to have little goals and something to achieve and accomplish every day.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. Like the gold standard is making super tiny improvements over a long period of time.
Yeah.
There isn't really anything.
Right.
There is nothing that'll get you a large amount of results in a short amount of time that is sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, you can kill yourself for 30 days and lose a bunch of weight and get all this progress, but like, you're going to burn yourself out and, progress stops, and then it becomes super easy to reverse all of that. So absolutely, man, like paying attention to the little things over a long period of time will get you the big things.
When you decide to transition from girlfriend to fiance, you'll see your future bride do that too. As you get close to a wedding day, they'll do these crash diets like 3-4 months before, trying to fit into dresses. It's amazing. I thought my wife was skinny and toned up when we were dating, and man, I'll tell you what, she went on like 3 diets before then, and it was unbelievable. It was pretty cool. Hey, so another thing that you bring up is focusing on what you can do, and not, trying to overdo it, but the importance of sleep and how vitally important it is. And we were talking earlier about how it's not one of those sexy things, but how important sleep is for your body to recover. And in order to, especially during the daytime hours, to be able to have your body prepped for a fully functioning day.
Sleep is one of the biggest things for me. Top 3. You just really can't, especially so with something like Crohn's disease. Like, you have to understand that your body doesn't always absorb nutrients like the way that it should. So this goes back to the intensity thing. If you're in a flare, then you're like sort of at a nutrient calorie deficit to begin with, and then you're just asking too much of yourself.
Yeah.
And then you create a system that's like, you just create a bad system. Like, you're not going to be able to recover from that.
It's not a matter in that moment of I can do it, of getting over it. It's a matter of pushing yourself when your body is already deficient.
Right. And then that's a situation where your brain can really just push you in ways that you maybe shouldn't go. And it's just once you're aware of that you have, that we have the ability to do that to ourselves, then it becomes a little bit easier to control that. But sleep, for sure. I know for me, like, I can't do much of anything if I don't sleep well. And I've got my schedule down, like, very consistent. And I've seen great performance benefits to that, for sure.
Yeah. And one of the last things that you bring up is making strength a high priority, like especially where you can. And I've just noticed in applying that, even when I just do a little bit of something when it comes to strength training, I can tell other muscles are getting stronger just from the little bit that I'm trying to do.
Absolutely.
So it's not just, I may have the energy to grab some 15-pound dumbbells and do some curls, but what that's actually doing is also getting my shoulders moving and other body parts active as well.
Yeah. So strength, I like to think of strength as like the overall top, like, fitness pursuit, I guess, if you want to say it like that. Like, everything cascades from strength. Anytime you're getting stronger, everything else is improving. Like, if your goal is weight loss, focus on getting stronger. And, you build more lean muscle mass, you burn more calories. You burn more calories from exercising. So I know it's not common for someone to, like, well, it is pretty common for somebody to say, like, oh, my goal is to get stronger. Like, I want to get stronger. But for those of you who think that that isn't your goal, just think about this. Nobody in the world has ever said, I wish that I were weaker. Or, like, if you made strength gains,
right?
Nobody has ever been upset about that. Like, trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, so this vision in your mind, like, being strong is, being like super jacked and, I can bench press 350 pounds. That's not really like the right vision that I would shoot for. It's more of like when you open doors, when you do yard work, when occasionally you want to go toss the football or something, like, being stronger and being more mobile and, like, having a body that works together pain-free, like, that is like the number one goal. Then you don't have aches and pains and stuff like that just kind of put you in a bad mood.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Did Jeff tell all of our listeners where they can find you? If they want to follow you on Instagram or wherever, how can they look you up?
Yeah, so Make Savage the Body Fitness, MSTB Fitness. The website is www.mstbfitness.com. In the online coaching tab, that's where you can find that, like, how to train with chronic illness, the guide. And I have a whole bunch of stuff in there that I think is super important to people with chronic illness, but really those rules, like,
they're universal.
Oh yeah. And especially, like, anytime I train athletes, like, because they're the ones that are, concerned about performance, finding, like, the tiny things in life that you can optimize is key for them. But also the Instagram is MSTB Fitness, and that's it, man.
So I want to end with a quote that I love from your website, and it goes like this: I've learned that my ostomy and illness do not define me. I am defined by my decisions and the person I choose to be despite my condition. And if there's anything that sums up our conversation today, it's that. And that every day you get to make a choice on how you're going to look at it and how you're going to approach whatever struggle it is that you're dealing with. And really that we aren't defined by the situation we're in, but how we deal with it and how important that is. Thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your story. The most important way that I've found that people that deal with this and go through this stuff can find some sort of mental liberation is by sharing their stories and hearing other people. So you doing this twice was huge, dude. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man. Be savage, not average. That's what that quote means in a nutshell.
That's right.
Day by day.
Be savage, not average. Jeff, very cool, man. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.